Hello, everybody. Welcome to What the Frick Live. I don't know what the delay is. My internet is doing good.
No, you're good. You're good. Uh-oh. In and out. But no, thank you, Emily. I think you're coming in and out. The intro is playing. You're muted.
Deleting the video. I don't know what the heck is going on. But there we go, everybody. What the frick? What the heck is going on? I'm so sorry. Everybody, welcome to What the Frick Live on Friday, August the 4th, right here on 107.7 FM New Orleans. We love you all. We appreciate you all. Sorry we weren't here last week, but you know, it's summertime madness.
Yes,
and
that's right.
So August is going to be a great week. Thank you, Will Martinez. I have him with me tonight from Dark Fringe Radio. How are you doing, Will?
Good. Thank you for having me on, and thanks for having me join this really interesting episode tonight. So I'm really looking forward to our guest.
Oh, yeah. This is a bucket list guest for me this evening. You know how I am in all my rabbit hole and everything. And we all grew up watching America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries and everything. I never would have dreamed that I would have been talking to Meghan Walsh, John Walsh's daughter, and all the things that's been going on with her here lately too, with Child Protective Services and what John Walsh has done to her, his own daughter, over the last year, maybe a little bit over a year. So this is going to be a really detailed show, and I'm not going to go in much further into anything other than just to bring our guests onto the show, and hopefully nothing else will mess up. So let's bring Meghan to the show right now. Meghan Walsh, welcome to What the Frick Live. Yay! Hey. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, guys. How are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
absolutely.
We hear you great. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule and everything to come on and talk to us about what's going on with you and things. And, I mentioned your father a little bit there with America's Most Wanted and missing exploited children, everything. Before we get into your story, I'd really interested in what was life like growing up as John Walsh, as your dad?
That's a big question, but, it has, like everything, it has its pluses and its minuses, of course. I'm very thankful. I've always been very thankful for the upbringing that I had and what I was provided with and the opportunities that I had. And I have respected and honor my parents my entire life. And that's why this stuff that we're about to talk about in the past 2 years, I think like a lot of people have gone through very earth-shattering things, especially in the past 3 years in one way or another. And this happens to be part of it. But growing up, it was interesting because, there was this, you're very fortunate, silver spoon in your mouth, you have everything that you need, but then there's the other side of it, and there's behind closed doors, versus a public persona is a big thing that I talk about. And really what goes on behind closed doors of elite families or celebrities.
Uh-oh.
We
lost her. As soon as she said elite, you know where my brain's going. It's the elite of Finger Lakes and Diplomat Hotel down there where
the enlightened ones, the illuminated ones.
Yeah, the illuminated ones.
Yeah.
That's where my mind.
Yeah, I think we got Meghan back up. Thank God.
We got her back. Hopefully, Meghan. As soon as you said elite, gone.
I didn't last long, guys. I didn't last long.
So what were you saying about these certain particular people and groups that you ran around with or was introduced
to? I just think that people don't realize the public persona from elites and celebrities versus a private life, and especially one that I was brought up in. I mean, my parents came out of tragedy allegedly and moved on, in that tragedy were, given TV shows. They created the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, and a lot was put on before they could really recover from trauma, and that kind of a thing. So obviously that has an effect growing up, and I think that we're realizing, for me, and especially with my children, I'm a mother of 4 now, and for me it was about not having the cake and cookies and candy to really distract from, what was wrong with the family, if you will, or any turmoil that was going on. Or, for me, I was raised, people can see, being held by Ronald Reagan in the Rose Garden and Oval Office, on Capitol Hill, essentially, and then into media and on set with my father. And people don't realize, we had aliases, we had bodyguards, we told people that, we lived in Washington, D.C. when that's not where we lived. And, it was that kind of a lifestyle, also always in fear. There were death threats. NAMBLA, the North American Man Boy Lovers Association, actually put a hit out on my life before I was even a year old. And my father talks about that in his, I believe it was 2018 DOJ speech. So yeah, I mean, it's yes. Did I travel the world? Absolutely. Was I presented great opportunities and great education, everything? Absolutely. And did my parents love me? Yes, absolutely. But as we're seeing, there's always darker things, especially in past generations or when you're children of these people. And it's just been a wild ride to kind of navigate. And I started doing that years ago through my own, process and really becoming a mother and seeing how any parts of my past were affecting, my ability. And it wasn't really, it was more about the fact that I didn't want my children to have the same upbringing as I did. I wanted them to, be in church and go to regular school and have a small 3-bedroom home, that was really just a regular, family with chores and play dates and things like that. So that really has been a moment of contention, and that's kind of where things hit the fan with my family and I. But growing up, it has its pluses and minuses. I'm not going to be unfair about that. I had great times with my family, but there was a lot of turmoil, and my father's, mistresses and my mother's issues and covert abuse. And the things that when I started, again, looking into it, having support and going into it as my field of work to help people heal from trauma, especially childhood trauma. And that's actually what we'll get into tonight, which our own system is actually, enacting and terrorizing families and children with domestically.
Real quick, I have one more question, then I'll let Will follow up. So did your dad try to groom you to possibly take over his position with your family's, destiny or brand that you were raised up on? Were you kind of picked? Because you speak very well and you're very smart and intelligent, and it just seems like you were first born after Adam went missing, right? Correct? Mm-hmm. Did he try to groom you to take those steps or anything? Is there...
Well, I think that people don't understand that when you're in that environment, you don't look at it as grooming of any sort. You look at it as normal. You are born of a celebrity. You are, the pressure to either be something in that industry or of that level or following those footsteps is obviously always there. That's how it's generational, right? Mm-hmm. That we see. So for me, yes. And in these families, you definitely, especially when there's narcissistic abuse present, you definitely have the golden child, the scapegoat, the parents, the enabler, the narcissist. You definitely have those roles within the family. We see that with Britney Spears and these different kinds of situations. So for me, it's it can change in the family. So early on, people, will see me as I had my own fashion line. I lived in India. I developed production and distribution from India in my late 20s. Then I moved back after launching my line at Manhattan Fashion Week and was headlining all of that. From there, I went into music and was releasing and writing my own EPs and performing that at the same time with my runway shows. And I was working. I was definitely in the spotlight to be more in entertainment. And then once I left music and the fashion industry, because of the things that I had seen and experienced there, actually, many people know that one of my sons is with the best friend of Kanye West. So we were in that circle. I was experiencing that out there. And it really made me say, okay, I'm definitely leaving this industry. This is, good for me. And I wasn't really even deep in it. Our family's agency is William Morris Endeavor, and that's coming up a lot lately. It's the world's largest talent agency. So a lot goes on there. And I started kind of asking myself, guys, if the devil's real, or, we're in his lair, what would that look like in the 3D? And kind of, these suits and contracts and stylists and handlers and different things like that really had me thinking. And I left again to really, go into the field of helping people in the community. And that's when I started advocating against the corruption within our Child Protective Services and Family Court across this nation. And then from there transpired the situation that I'm in currently with Florida's DCF.
Meghan, if you don't mind me asking, kind of switching gears, away from your father, but, wanted to talk more about how these services, these governmental services, are affecting us in this way. What is the mechanism? What are they doing exactly? If you can, maybe shed some light on that. What was the first thing that you maybe stumbled into that said, oh, there's something here, we have to keep following this? What was that one catalyst thing that you maybe ran into that really got you going on this?
Well, thanks, Will, for that. I think that's important. I know a lot of us obviously are still wondering what the Epstein list is, or when's that going to, be prosecuted and followed through on and really revealed. So obviously we all experienced that. And when that happened, it really made me think about, especially with Trump and with the, everything's political these days and everything, and it was Save Our Children and this big, child trafficking thing. And I was like, well, my family, that's we do missing and exploited children. I'm a mom. Like, this is amazing. We can do something. And when I started looking into it, and actually what I found was countless families, especially in the Midwest originally, like Arizona, these places, which has a huge issue. I started seeing families and communities that were holding rallies and were holding up signs about their children being taken and from loving homes, right? So, of course, seeing that, I couldn't sleep at night. I had to look deeper into it. Being John Walsh's daughter, I definitely am a born detective. So I started looking into it. And they forget, I think. But anyways, but I started looking into it, and I was mortified. I mean, how can we know that CPS and Child Protective Services, which is supposed to be the best interest of the child, especially at a time when we're finding out a lot about narratives versus the truth, and regarding NGOs and regarding our government and things. And, I've supported law enforcement my entire life. Like, I've supported, I was never really into politics. I'm very blessed that this is a nonpartisan issue. I really hope people can start to understand that. But, this is a systemic issue with our government. I'm not against the government. I'm not against defund anything, but Child Protective Services at this point truly does need to be abolished. There are better ways for us to be handling these situations that every family experiences, especially in this time now when people are losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, they can't afford groceries. I mean, this is the real state of where we're at in this country, and that's making our children very susceptible. And we need to understand what parental rights are. When we're talking about masks and we're talking about trans and, gender and all of this, this is all part of parental rights. And when we can't speak up and hold our parental rights, and we let these, this seeping into our homes and our families, we are doomed. And I hate to sound that way, but to put it simply on a Friday, we're doomed in that. And it's already happening. So where this comes from, Will, is and I go into many other podcasts and things about this, as well as I have my small little team behind me that are ex-caseworkers, major researchers on Maximus and Social Security, Title IV. These are the things that are really put in place behind closed doors that are affecting us. The Clintons with the Children and Safe Families Act, that is what monetized adoption. So we have to start shifting what we have been told, with no oversight, no accountability, qualified immunity on these people that are taking our children now. And it's becoming more and more subjective, and behind closed doors, more statute and case law is being passed that does endanger every family and child here in America. And we've got great things like Sound of Freedom and things coming out about child trafficking, but we need to be careful about that. We need to we need to learn to question and follow the money, and really be holding these organizations and these government entities accountable when they are making money at this point. And it's our taxpayer money on taking our children instead of showing thriving, improved families, communities, and children.
Well, a lot of the judges collude. Like, they all collude, and they always get a part of the money from that. I've watched several different investigations through Arizona, actually. And I think it's Maricopa County, which is obviously a big bad county anyway. Arizona. Terrible county. But I've watched several cases there, and they've gotten busted. Even the judges have colluded in the backdrop of all of this, agreeing when the child comes from a perfectly stable home just for the money. The whole judicial system needs to start over.
Yeah,
like, everything.
Well, I think that's what you're right. I mean, that's what we're seeing, unfortunately, that, we have a two-tier justice system. I was thrashed through the system, and I can't imagine, what's happening to others that don't have my name, that don't have, the resources. I mean, I had everything stripped from me, and that was planned out. And so for me, I've literally been in the trenches with everyone for 2 years, and it's been horrific. It is domestic terrorism, what they are doing to these families. The children, the perspective of the children is not thought about at all. This is trauma to these children, and this is trauma to families, and that splits children. And we're wondering why we have these issues, why we have this mental health crisis. This is going from that like rehabilitative approach to lock them up and throw away the key. And we're seeing that with our judiciary, with the judges, with the guardian ad litems, with the caseworkers and the administrators. And it's within the system itself is a very abusive system to each other. I mean, the administrators, how they treat the caseworkers, the caseworkers are unfortunately perjuring themselves and falsifying documents. And then the judges aren't aware, aren't diligent on that, and because they can use that as an excuse. Oh, well, this is what we were told, so this is what we ruled on. And horrifically, that is a problem. That does become a racket when everyone then, furthermore, any service that is assigned to the child or to the family, any prescriptions or pharmaceuticals, those are all contracts, and this is a business now at this point. The government is not handling it. They are taking so many children because they have to keep a quota. There was a congressman the other day speaking in Congress talking about quotas are bounties on people's heads. So now we have bounties in America on children's heads, and parents are then being harassed, terrorized, threatened, jailed, and committing suicide. And children are as well. This is a failing system. This is not a conspiracy, sadly. This is not some big drama Hollywood movie. This is not in, in Hong Kong or Bangkok or India. This is domestic American child trafficking sanctioned by our government via Child Protective Services. And there are too many people at this point speaking out about it and wondering how are these pedophile rings, supplied? What are the sources of what's going on? The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children itself quotes that over 88% of child trafficking comes from the foster care system. Yet, what are they doing about it? What are they doing about the immigration and the issues at the border? And why do we have those issues at the border? We have them because they already know it's a well-oiled machine for trafficking. You can come and do it and get money for it and get paid, and you don't care if you get the same product back, because that's what it is for you. I mean, these are very serious things that are happening.
In Florida is one of the biggest places too for trafficking. Texas, well, you got the border, but then you got Florida over there.
Well, we're ports. I mean, there's
international.
We're surrounded by water. I mean, there's so many different ways of getting these children in and out of out of here. It's just ridiculous. Meghan, one thing I wanted to ask, one thing I wanted to kind of like mention and maybe ask of you is that we have these governmental services like CPS and all this, and a lot of times they shuffle these kids in and out of other supposedly like religious type of organizations that will help them place these children. Catholic. Let me just put it out there. I mean, how's the Catholic Church still going around? I mean, how many people have to be convicted? How many cases and court cases have to be done before anybody even does or says anything about this? I'm sorry to say it like that, but I mean,
well, that's the thing that we need. I mean, and that's what we have to be asking is, why are these, I think we're breaking up, guys, sorry. But that's, yes, Will, from what I could catch, that's what we need to be asking. What is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children doing about this? What is the government doing about this? What are our state politicians? I mean, everyone wants to think big, right? But this is something that is simple, and it is going to take every community to get involved. We have to then be asking, why are these politicians not speaking on this? How can all of this be happening and not be addressed? Because we should all be on the same page. We should all want what's best for children and for them to be safe. And if these people are saying that they're these community saviors and everything, then why aren't they wearing body cams 24/7? Why isn't there more accountability? Why is this all done behind closed doors and confidential? We have to be asking that.
Do you think missing and exploited children may collude? Like they're hiding in plain sight?
Well, that was that's a big thing that that's a big thing that we talk about. And I'm sorry, again, we were breaking up, but Will did mention it, and I didn't address that with the Catholic charities, churches, different things, and all of these people that we are seeing arrested. And we really need to be looking at what are our modern child predators. We are in a different time and space, and where are child predators going to put themselves? They're going to put themselves as close to children or having authority over children as they possibly can. So yes, daily on my Twitter, I post, law enforcement, case managers, foster parents, judges, politicians, and this is not just on one side. There are actually, I believe, statistically more Republican politicians that have been accused or had parts in child pedophilia or predator issues, I'll just keep it at that, than even Democrats. And so we have to be getting real about what this is. And this is not like this, of course, to us, we can't understand it. So it gets like very dramatized, and it has been for 2 years. And we really need to ground this and think about the fact that this is an ideology. Pedophiles have an ideology. This is not like, oh, that's wrong. Like, we as the outside that know that pedophilia is wrong, we are not going to be able to understand. You can't know what you haven't experienced, right? So we have to look at this as an ideology. These people, this goes back to NAMBLA, like I said earlier, North American Man-Boy Lovers Association. This goes to the trans movement. This goes to Luciferian satanic doctrine. And this goes all the way back to even Nazi Germany, and in the foster care system, the experiments of putting foster care boys with pedophiles. Dr. Fauci has been a part of using foster children in experiments. You know, we have 800,000 children or whatever these huge numbers are, but that would be an Amber Alert in every community, like every couple seconds. I don't remember the math off the top of my head. It's been a minute since I spoke about it, but the numbers aren't adding up. The math isn't adding up. And then when you look at NGOs, like we're seeing that go to Haiti or Oprah in Africa, you know, and you know, these different affiliations, that's really me coming from the industry and from every aspect of that, politics, media, you know, Hollywood, all of it, for me to be able to look at that and really see how these ties come together. Why is Les Wexner, who funded Jeffrey Epstein, one of the main donors to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children through L Brands? Why is Richard Branson and, you know, Clinton and Tony Blair's wife and World Economic Forum, why are they all creating the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children that uses The Hague and has had many come forward on how their children have been stolen and trafficked through The Hague, which is Hague law? There's a huge issue in the UK as well as Australia with the Child Protective Services. And this is a big thing that is being distracted from with child trafficking porn. I will say it. At this point, we've had 2 years of the adrenochrome and tunnels and, you know, all this crazy, crazy stuff. And I've been accused of so much for knowing the realities or, you know, denying or agreeing or whatever. And the fact is we need to all get out of that. There's nothing at this point that we can do about that. We're all tweeting about it. We're all talking about it. Yes, awareness is great. But if we don't go to the source for that, okay, we have this on the outside, but we need to get to the source. Who's providing those children? How are they being provided? We've got CPS that we need to look at. We've got the embassies that we need to look at. We've got very real ways. The Arts and Embassies program with Jeff Koons, who is a big pop artist that was connected to David Brock, and also Hillary Clinton and Marina Abramovich through the Arts and Embassies program. And that's a big thing that I talk about too. We have to look at these players. Who is Jeff Koons? Who is Richard Branson, connected to NXIVM Sex Cult and Necker Island, and was also a founding donor to Terramar, which is a sovereign, who knows what, you know, maritime entity when he's starting a international children's, you know, initiative. And it's a very globalist initiative. And that's what I noticed over the years that started getting me to question the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, because I started seeing our domestic organization, NCMEC, really starting to promote and support trans or, you know, these different movements and getting political. When for me, that organization is my brother's namesake. My family is there to protect children. I can't speak for the other family members at this point, but I am not okay with that. And I basically, as a child, was put up to start that foundation, and I was at everything. So, you know, this is really important to me. And I started questioning that stuff. And that's really when things kind of started hitting the fan, as well as questioning my brother's case and the narrative that was put out to the media versus, you know, the actual truth of what was going on at the time. You know, we're given these big narratives, but then we don't really ask when they're emotional. We don't really ask, what was going on before. And sometimes, like Amber Alerts, we get these big narratives and we don't follow up on, was it canceled? Was the child found safe? What's the percentage that these Amber Alerts are actually needed? What's the percentage that are parental abductions? What is parental abduction? Is that really real? Is there a different way to be handling that? Or is that, again, just for statistics and money? So we're seeing Child Protective Services and the National Center working hand in hand, where they have where the children are being taken, they're being terrorized, the family's being terrorized, the case, they just keep adding things to the case plan, the goalpost keeps moving, you never get your child back, and they say, oops, the time frame's up, we're terminating your rights. That's insane. Children have rights too, just because they cannot talk. And their right is, and one of the main rights is to their biological family, to know where they came from. And that's what everyone wants. I've said this many times and I will say it forever. You can give a child a mansion, you can give a child everything they want, but they are always going to want to know where they came from. Even if it's from a drug addict, let them find that out. Let them decide for themselves. We also know statistically that the best interest of the child is actually to remain in the home, even if there is substance abuse, even if there is domestic violence. The studies do show that it is better for the child psychologically and in the long term with adverse, events that can show up later, to actually have the child remain in the home. The brain damage that is caused to the children and families that are put through this is documented as well and is extreme. So there's so many aspects to this, but the bottom line is that now our taxpayer money is going to a system that is now a business, that is fulfilling quotas, selling our children through adoption, grooming, talk about grooming foster parents, grooming the public that want to do well. The turnover rates within this business and this industry is astounding. And again, it just goes cyclical. They don't care about the children, the conditions for the children. They're being put with abusers and pedophiles at this point as well. It keeps the system going.
I believe that. Real quick, since you mentioned Adam a few moments ago, Megan, and we've all heard the narrative of what happened to him, being abducted and then obviously possibly found. Now that you've gotten older and everything, and maybe you've questioned and you've seen angles that we have not seen, what do you think really happened?
Well, I appreciate that, Emily. And, I don't want to be vague. A lot of people want to know that, and they want to, with respect, I don't have another phrase for it, but they want to pigeonhole me kind of in. I've seen a lot online, like, she said that her father sacrificed her brother. She says that, this, that, and the other, when I've never actually I wasn't there, you guys. How could I know exactly, what happened? But I did start questioning things. My brother's murder has been a controversy and has been controversial since the day it happened for 42 years. And, even just months ago or last year, we have, Dahmer might have done it and all of this. So, when the police is telling us that Otis Toole, one of the nation's most notorious serial killers, and Jeffrey Dahmer were both in blocks of each other and were both possibly one or the other or both or whatever involved in Adam Walsh, a nobody little boy, in a mall. I mean, who is the conspiracy theorist here, guys? So, I finally at 38 years old, when I, again, was starting to really realize the aspects of abuse that I had, experienced growing up, and that was still being enacted on me. The coercive control, the gaslighting, and a lot, the crazy making, literally, was what it was. And again, you have this guilt of, your father's John Walsh. They do such good things. How could you be against him? And that's a really horrific thing, place to be in, especially when I do love them and I want, my children to know them and I want to take care of them as they age. But I did start looking into my brother's case. And really it was a lot of, when I started looking into my brother's case in the National Center, it was a lot because I was actually being approached. I was being approached by other people asking about the affiliations, Laura Silsby with Haiti and Amber Alert, and Ernie Allen and Ashton Kutcher with Thorn. And really we're seeing a lot of this being data. So clearinghouses and data. So I started looking into that and my brother's case as well, obviously. I was like, this is what we do. I love my brother more than anything. Like Adam has always been everything to me. There's rumors about somebody did come out actually after my children were taken and said that they were my brother and that they were alive. I met him. I, listened to his take. I've recorded it. People want to say, oh, you aren't doing enough. You aren't doing it. That's not for me, to do. I'm focused on getting my children home and safe. I'm focused on staying safe myself by what I speak out about and about this system, because this is billions of dollars on our children that, is being outed and being stopped against our government that they will lose, as well as my father and who's behind him with the National Center and everybody. So, for as far as that's concerned, we have to I need other people, I guess. I'm jotting around the issue. We need other people to be looking into this. We have so many true crime people. We've got so many like private investigators and all this stuff that, justiceforadam.com has all of the case files, all of the police reports for free up there. And if the American public took one look at any of those documents, their jaw would hit the floor. And, the things that don't add up, the immediate clearing of my parents, the hypnosis, right. I mean, that's a whole different show in itself, but to answer your question very long-windedly, Emily, that I don't know exactly. I do know that we need to look at my father's past involved with hotels and the Diplomat Hotel and what was the lifestyle in Hollywood, at that time. Then he was going to the Bahamas and specifically Paradise Island, which is CIA, Meyer Lansky, Resorts International. And he was on the Out Island committee and board. And he was down in South Florida for over 10 years prior to Adam going missing. And who was his boss? John Monahan. Who was John Monahan affiliated with? Because we find that a lot of it is Irish mob and drug trafficking and planes that are gutted and dead wives and fiancés, and the rumors have always been around that time that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, as the Buffalo crime family is who set up shop down there in the Diplomat Hotel during this time. And where did John Walsh graduate college? Buffalo, so,
New York. Yeah.
And then Adam goes missing. I'm saying this. Megan's not saying this. Adam goes missing, and he goes from one job to a massive other job after Adam goes missing. And it's in places that are still questionable. And then Finger Lakes, we got Finger Lakes now later on that's still questionable. And then he he stood in for Beau Biden, but gives Hunter Biden an award for missing and exploited children. And Hunter Biden has a tattoo of Finger Lakes on his back. I don't know. I'm not an investigator, but it's just something in my gut is saying something's not right with this. And I put in justiceforadam.com here on the list. I have gone through a lot of those case files and read some of it's hard to read. It's blurry, but I've read a lot of it, and the timeline, and I've wrote down the timeline, and then I go back and it's like, well, they said this here, but this is different now here. Well, I left Adam in the car, but Adam never liked to be left in the car alone. Or left alone. Right. It's just all of it.
Or the fact that,
John Walsh,
they were everybody was cleared with a lie detector test within 1 week.
Yes. Well, when I literally posted that earlier this week, I believe that when you look at the polygraph test, and this has been my main thing, is Joe Matthews. He is something else, and he has been directing this narrative this entire time. He has groomed my parents and gotten them to believe certain things, whether they know. I think my parents know more things. I know they know more than they're saying. I will say that they wouldn't have done this to me either if they didn't, they've done this to other people that have spoken out about, the system, or about the situation, excuse me, and they've actually used the system for retaliation. But you're absolutely right. When we're looking at these polygraph tests, so first of all, a guy's brought in from outside to do polygraph tests named Joe Matthews. He's doing these polygraph tests. He brags about keeping my father in interrogation for over 9 hours, and then he clears him from this polygraph test. And then he had my mom's live-in lover, younger live-in lover at the time when Adam went missing. He had just moved out of the home weeks prior because there was a love triangle situation and it wasn't working out in the home anymore. And my mother wanted him to go out and, get on his own. And so he actually did 2 polygraph tests. And then my mother that was a big thing I started asking that I got really weird reactions about when I started asking who was hypnotizing my mother, who was, after being in healing and, weird stories people have heard me say about being sent out to Passages, rehab in Malibu and all the weird stuff that went on there with hypnosis and energy work and things. I really, these are the things we need to be asking about, and that wasn't received well. But when you're looking at these polygraph tests and you see the reaction, you're reading the answers and responses. And for me, I know certain things about my family. And when they're lying in the polygraph, and then the polygraph is saying that they passed it, and now 3 of the main people around this child, which my father himself quotes that if something happens to a child, it's most likely a family member or someone that is close to the family or around the family. But apparently it doesn't apply to this situation, right? Rules for thee, not for me. But then they're cleared. All 3 of them are cleared within a week.
Well, that was James Campbell. James Campbell with your.
That's right.
That was James Campbell with your mom, right? James Campbell.
Yeah.
But didn't he also work at the Diplomat? That's how John and James became friends.
Well, actually, he did. He worked at the Diplomat later, but how my father originally met James Campbell was when James was a child. When he was about 12 or 13 years old, my dad was working as a cabana boy at the Diplomat Hotel. And he actually saved James's friend, Michael Monahan, which ends up being his boss. Then from the saving, he saves this little boy from drowning is the story. And so John Monahan then gives him, a promotion and makes him an executive in the hotel business. But James was about 12 or 13 years old as the boss's son's friend, around the hotel. And my dad met him then. And then later we see him working briefly at the Diplomat and moving in with my parents and basically being the houseboy and lover.
Sorry, that's just crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
Because
how do you think they
got
got away with saying that I was crazy? Because it is so crazy. It's like
it's like a Spanish novella.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
No,
and I get to be the one to talk about it.
No. There you go. Right. Yeah. Yep. That's it.
No, it's been horrible, to be honest. I lost everything for speaking out about this, and everything, meaning my children, my home, my life, my career, everything has been taken from me while we're harassed, and threatened by, those connected as well. So online, in real life, all of it. But there are a lot of questions to be asked. And I would like my brother's case to be reopened. I think that he deserves justice and peace. I know it's a lot. It's very easy for people to say, let him rest in peace. Or, I also know who I'm talking about. I know I'm talking about John Walsh, but, he's my father. Like, I have a right to talk about, I know him, it's been wild to see people just go on the attack because you watched him on TV or because maybe you even shook his hand. Like, and I haven't even said he's a bad person. No, it's just, people also need to understand that when you're in this, when there's this issue of child trafficking, you're in these things, you might not be raping children, but you're also turning a blind eye to things as well. That's how the politicians are involved. That's how different things, we have to be looking at this a little more sophisticatedly. And National Center for Missing Exploited Children and the International Center have the world's largest CP, we know what that is, CP databases. Okay. Now, who has oversight over that? And more so, who has access to that?
Right. Yeah.
There are so many questions when you have Les Wexner donating, when you have Richard Branson, when you have platforms like TikTok and Facebook and Airbnb, who all have notorious issues with trafficking. And then you're finding that people are making reports to the hotline and the reports are just going missing from those particular platforms. I mean, there's many different things that, I've been positioned for the past 2 years as some crazy person, accusing when no, I've actually asked questions. And the National Center has a duty to the American people who fund them to answer these questions. And they should be wanting to do that. They should want to prove how well they are protecting our children, not on this online predator, educate parents and children to defend yourselves or to avoid it, grift that they're doing. It's devastating to me because that's putting it on parents. You have enough resources now. You have enough law enforcement. You have enough of the biggest 3-letter agencies they even have Child Rescue Coalition, which is Hank Asher, the developer of LexisNexis, The Matrix, all of it, passed away now, ex-drug trafficker, friends with my father from the Bahama days. This is all from them. Went to Haiti together to work in medical tents and we're flying on private planes back and forth. I mean, I think that we have a right to, it's a duty. I think people need to understand we have a duty as the American people to be asking these questions, not tell somebody that they're crazy and we can take their kids, because then guess what? You might be seen as crazy one day, and now you've allowed the case statute and case law to be passed that you can take anyone's kids if you don't agree with it. This trickles down. This is a large thing here that we're dealing with.
When you're dealing with narcissistic psychopaths, or the Jezebel spirit is what I say, they don't like to be questioned, and when they are questioned, they don't like that. The very first words, that person's crazy, that person's psychopath. They can't stand it. I have a question, and we'll follow up, and we'll let you go, Meghan. Thank you so much. So what is the status with your children? Are you going to be able to get them back, or have you seen the baby? Because is the baby at least 1 year now, or how old's the youngest?
She is. Yeah, she's a little over a year. The end of May was her birthday. So we did a little party in the office. I made the best I could of it. And no, I have not seen my other 3 children in coming up on a year. My parents have adopted my 2 sons. They've given my daughter to this biological father that participated in all of this with the perjury and lies. And actually did this to his own daughter, who, again, my children have inheritances and they have, all of that as well. We can't forget. So I have not seen or spoken to them, and I've done everything that I can to get my children back, to get my baby back. But again, we are dealing with a very corrupt system, and my presence daily with my own situation has been, let's do what's right. Please prove me wrong. Let's do what's right. I've done everything. I'm speaking out, nationally. They hate that, but I will never stop. And that's the work that I do. That's my purpose under God. And I will not stop doing that for all of our children, even when my issues resolved. I was doing it before my children were ever taken or any of this happened to my life for doing so. So I'm not going away, but they are, still doing what they do. They're moving goalposts, and I can't really say a lot about it out of respect to the court, because again, everything's kept in silence, and parents aren't allowed. They're forbidden and threatened if they speak out about what is happening to them and what's being done to their children. But I do need prayers. We always need prayers from everyone. And we have hope looking forward as far as Esther is concerned. And I hope that with all of that and the over 10 evaluations I've done over 2 years and the twice a week drug testing and the every requirement, that we can finally, get to the truth. I think that this has been exposing a lot. I thank my father for exposing CPS through my case. I don't know if he intended to do that or not, but I'm going to take the good with the bad, and I'm going to thank John Walsh for doing that. But the mental anguish that my children are put through every second in their beds at night and waking up in the morning, they know the truth. They know mommy never abused them. We have a lot of evidence that will be coming out in the future, is really all I can say about what has really transpired and who my parents really are. I've tried to keep grace and really focus on my children and for the country where we're at right now. I can look at that stuff later. I can handle that stuff later, but we are really at a crucial point where we need people to be spreading this information in their communities, on their postings if you post, what are you posting every day? If you can't post 1 or 2 posts about domestic child trafficking or a foster worker, or a caseworker or a foster parent that had been arrested or something like that, why can't you do that? This is the most important issue. And this is the breaking of our children, and and state-raised, system-raised children is where this trajectory goes. And that's why we're having the issues that we have. Every issue that we face as a society stems from that. That's childhood. These are our children. That is our future. So, we need to really be focusing on what American child trafficking looks like, not just this out there in la la land and crazy town, all these pedophiles and no, we need to be going in our communities. Look up your local DCF or CPS department. Look up who they contract to handle their case plans. Look who those people contract to handle the medications or the services or the parenting classes or the drug tests, and see the racket that is in your community. And those are the names of the people trafficking your children as we speak. And it is in your community, and it's with your money. And so if you care about any of those aspects, I suggest that we all get involved. This is something that we all need to unite about. This is the last I'll say on it, is this is something that we all come together. This is going to affect any demographic, any race. It's now affecting even trans and LGBTQ, all that stuff, with now saying that they can take your children if you supported that, or if you don't support it. I mean, this is a very dangerous place that we're going into by ignoring this, by taking the bait of masks and books and things in schools and on school boards. Yes, that's important, but that is a byproduct of this source issue. And this is the domestic trafficking of our children by our government.
Wow.
I believe it all. I believe I've been talking about this for years, and I'm like, and people called me crazy and all this stuff. I said, just wait, because I worked for Limited Brand, and I opened up the largest Lerner New York and company in Columbus, Ohio. I talked to Les Wexner on the phone. I can't even tell you how many times. And before Epstein got caught the first time, Les Wexner asked me, I was too old for them though. I was 18, 19. And Les asked me to go out to dinner with them twice, says, I want you to meet my friend Jeffrey. And in my spirit, which was the Holy Ghost, it was the Holy Spirit that told me, it went absolutely not. And I said no both times that he asked. But this is when Epstein got caught the first time. I called my friend Stacy that worked for the company, and I called her. I said, this was MySpace days, and I said, is that Les Wexner's Jeffrey? She goes, yes. We were talking. So I've kind of seen this.
That's what they do. That's how they do it
along the way. Will, do you have any final question or anything you'd like to ask?
No, actually, Megan actually answered my final question. I was going to ask her, what can people do? Like, the regular people, that are, hustling, bustling, and that care about this situation and want to do something about it. What can they do? And she shared the answer.
I'm gonna reiterate, and more out of anything, contact your governor. I mean, email your governor, creates a legal document. It's the top person who owns any children that are taken. Contact and email your governor of your state and say, as a concerned citizen of America, I just wanted to ask, are you aware of the domestic child trafficking happening through our state's child protective services? And if so, what are you doing about it? If not, may we, be in communication further, or can we point you to certain people to inform you more on how to address this issue? And that alone, the response, whether it's positive or negative, if there's a response or even not a response, is an answer in itself. And then you go from there. But we really need people to be doing that. And I do see Zachary Powers here. Shout out to Maricopa County. I mean, there's a lot of people in CPS doing great. We're advocates outside of CPS, I should say, really doing great work out there, risking a lot. And have I seen Sound of Freedom? What do I think of the film? I think people should see it if they aren't aware of child trafficking. I think that they should look into the affiliations, because again, this is addressing NGOs. This is not personal for me. I'm not into this savior or Tim Ballard, Jim Caviezel, all these John Walsh. I don't care. Right now, we need to be knowing that NGOs and organizations, we need to be questioning those and holding them accountable, but also the fact that we know what child trafficking in Bangkok looks like. We know what child trafficking in India looks like, in Colombia. All of us cannot go and do anything about that. If we went to Colombia, we would be beheaded in 2 seconds to try and save a child. What we have to address, and it's not black and white for me. This is a hard position, because I'm glad that it came out, but also we need it really, again, detracted from the hard work of the past 2 years of American mothers and families to show that the domestic issue, the issue is here. It's a domestic child trafficking issue, and we're trying to address those numbers. We're trying to address those questions. We're really showing up every single day and trying to educate and motivate the American people to really see this for what it is. And from there, we know that America is looked at as the world. The world looks at America, they look and see what we're doing. So if we can really take a stand on our child protective services and show that there are better ways, there are real issues of abuse and neglect in our country, but there are different ways to be handling this. And a system cannot handle sacred families and lives. A system is for product and output and profit and very cold, So we need to be reapproaching this. We need to abolish CPS, and we need everyone to get involved. And everyone can find me on Twitter. So there you go.
That's what I was going to say. Follow Megan on Twitter, and we're going to let you go, Megan. Thank you so much for everything tonight. We appreciate you. We'd love to have you come back on in the future. And we will definitely be praying for you and your reunion for your children and everything. God's going to work it all out. I know he will. So I'll let you go. Thank you, Megan. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, you guys too. God bless. God bless.
All right.
Well, there we have it. We had Miss Meghan Walsh on with us this evening. Wow. Sorry for technical issues, everybody that's watching and listening here on 107.7. My theory, though, out of all of it, it is in a lot of this stuff is hidden in plain sight for me. And I've gone down rabbit holes with John Walsh, missing exploited children. It would not surprise me if something comes out from that. And all in all, I didn't mention this earlier, John Walsh also has a home in Finger Lakes. And so the Finger Lakes with the tattoo and everything, and the link to Diplomat and the Buffalo crime family, we know how much these people love cocaine and fame, and they sell their souls in many ways. But that's just my conspiracy part of it. But sex trafficking with these children is absolutely real. It's the number one money maker in the world, and America is become the number one place for trafficking. Even all these other nations and stuff are warning women with children or women that are pregnant not to travel to America due to the sex trafficking and people going missing. But that's my 2 cents. If anybody wants that, I don't know. But Will Martinez, how about you?
No. It's a scary situation, being a parent of, a daughter who's 8 years old, and my son is 15. I think he could handle himself pretty good. He's a tough kid. But you worry as a parent because it's so rampant. It's so right there in your face. Like, if my daughter's out of my sight for 2 seconds, I panic. My heart sinks. You know what I mean? And maybe it has to do with all the stuff in the media or whatever the case may be. But I get freaked out sometimes. You know what I mean? And
AI freaks me out. AI voice things. Hold on, I'm curious. The AI voice, they call my son and it sounds like me. It says, "Son, meet me over here," and stuff. Yeah, they can get your voice.
That's
horrible. My shows. They can copy my voice and call.
How many hours of your audio of your voice is on the internet?
Yeah. So get your voice, call your son, pretend it's you, and say, "Meet me here." So I said, I told you we have a code word. If anybody calls you and it says it's me or your father or somebody close to you, this is the code word, and you ask them what the code word is, and that's private between me and him. Like AI is taking stuff to a whole other level than what I could ever imagine. But this is a serious topic. Meghan Walsh was one of my top 10 people I ever wanted to interview. So I was so excited.
No, it was a wonderful opportunity to speak with somebody who has her hands in so many things when it comes to this. It's amazing. So,
well, next week, everybody, we will be live here again at 107.7 FM New Orleans with our guest. It's going to be a surprise. I don't know who the guest is. It's a surprise, everybody.
It's a potluck
anyway,
surprise.
Back to school too. Everybody praying for all the parents out there that's getting your kids ready to go back and tackle the classroom and get them on good sleep schedules again.
Little gremlins.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Will Martinez. Y'all have a great evening.